Hello friends, I know that now you have shifted from the science stream and you have come across to the commerce stream. There may be a number of reasons behind that. The reason can be that you were not interested to do science initially. Your parents must have told you that science join कर ले, बाद में सारे options open रहते हैं, and that's why you joined it. In fact, majority of them have the same story every time. Or you must have found the situation that there is a limited scope there, or the cost or the expenses are huge, and that's why you got shifted to the commerce stream. And I would congratulate on one point that in commerce stream you have chosen one of the right path, one of the right opportunity. Why? Because in the chartered accountancy course, yes, you must have learned it already, you must have heard it from a number of people that there is a huge effort required, there's a huge hard work required. No doubt about it. Whichever course you go in, you have to do some or the other kind of hard work. Or in a way, I would say that if you are trying to reduce your hard work at the initial stage, at a later time, you will be required to do a lot of work. So why not to do at the time when you are able to, when you are eligible to? और दूसरा आपके लिए एडवांटेज ये है कि आप साइंस के बच्चे हो, आपको तो 11th-12th से हैबिट है मेहनत करने की. So that will surely make a good difference for you. That will surely make a good opportunity for you. Well, I don't know whether you have started doing something about the accountancy as a subject. I'm not trying to go here and there a lot. I'm just trying to focus more on the accountancy aspect. I don't know whether you have read some books, if you have referred something. If you have started doing something, if you have started referring some of the books, then you must have started with the debits and credits directly. But my approach is a bit different. I am not going to start with debits and credits immediately, because what happens, just observe this. I am talking to you in English, you are able to understand every aspect of that, every point of that, because your terminology, your vocabulary about the language is good. वहीं अगर मैं आपके साथ हिंदी में बात करूं तो हिंदी भी आपको बहुत कंफर्टेबल लगती है, क्योंकि आप बचपन से हिंदी बात कर रहे हो, क्योंकि उसके शब्द आपको बहुत अच्छी तरह से पता है. सेम वेज अगर अकाउंटेंसी में आपको कॉन्फिडेंस लाना है, अकाउंटेंसी में अगर आपको बहुत ज्यादा काइंड ऑफ जिसे कहते हैं कि यू हैव टू बी रेडी फॉर एवरीथिंग, you have to be competent in the subject, you need to know the terminologies, you need to know the terms those are used in accountancy. Because what will happen when I'll start talking about various things, you will have a kind of feeling that what is it going on, I'm not able to get it. And therefore I'll first focus upon the important terms those are used in the subject of accountancy. And once we are done with that, then we'll talk about the various aspects of accounting. What is debit? What is credit? How the effects are given? How the accounting entries are done? How the journal entries are done? We'll do some problems on that. And based on that, you'll be having the confidence about the subject. So let me come on to the basic terms first. The very first term that I would be interested, the basic terms, the very first that I would be interested to talk about is the term of transaction. We are going to talk about a lot about this because there are so many places where we'll be talking about this term transaction. Everything that happens into a business, we call such activity, such happening into a business as event. And when such activity, when such event is associated with flow of money or money's worth, that becomes a transaction. So, an activity of a business of a business associated with what? The flow of money or money's worth is a transaction. Now, what does this mean? If I deposit cash into a bank, it is a transaction. Why? Because it is involving cash, that is money. If I purchase certain things from someone for cash, that is also a transaction because there is a flow of money. Or even if I purchase it on credit basis, then also it is a transaction. Why? In such case, I am calling that as a transaction because I am liable to, I am going to pay in future to that person or not. That's why there also I'll call such kind of such kind of activity as a transaction. Which means what? A transaction can be a cash transaction, or even a transaction can be a credit transaction. Now, when I'm calling something as a cash transaction, in a cash transaction, on one side, I'll always have cash or bank. One aspect, one side of that particular transaction will always involve cash or bank. Whereas, in a transaction, there is always a give and take. Anything to give, anything to take. It's a transaction. And because we are talking about the financial transaction, that's why we are talking about cash or cash value or cash worth. So in a cash transaction, on one side, you'll always have a cash or bank involved into that. And on the another side, you'll always have a person or purpose involved into it. Like cash paid to a supplier. The person from whom you had purchased something on credit is what we call as a supplier or creditor. Now at a later date, when you are making the payment to him, it becomes a cash transaction now. Why? Because on one side you are having cash involved into that, and on the other side you are having the person to whom you are making that payment or not. Salaries paid by cash. In this case, on one side again you have cash. Whereas on the other side you are having the purpose for which you are making that payment, that is salaries. Which means what? In a cash transaction, you'll always have cash or bank involved on one side and person or purpose involved on other side. Am I right? So first we learned what is a transaction. Then that transaction is divided into cash transaction and credit transaction. Now what is a credit transaction? When you have not paid immediately, when you have not received immediately, but you are going to receive or pay the money against certain activity at a later date, in that case it becomes a credit transaction. Which means what? In a credit transaction, on one side you'll always have a person, whereas on the other side you'll be having purpose or activity. Am I right? So in a cash transaction, you'll always have cash or bank involved into that, whereas in a credit transaction, you'll always have a person involved into that. Now, how to deal with that, we'll be talking about that in detail. For now, we are only focusing on the basic terms. So the first term that we have is transaction. Second term that we have talked about is the cash transaction. Third is a credit transaction. Am I right? We are doing accounting. So we need to learn what is account. So the second term, another term that we are going to focus upon now is account. Now what is this account? Account is basically a summary of different transactions related to a person or activity or cash or bank. I said what? Account is a summary of what? Of different transactions related to a person, purpose, activity or cash. Account is generally prepared in a two-part format. Why two-part format? You'll be understanding it in more detail at a later point. For now, I'm just making a brief kind of explanation on that. We follow something called as double entry accounting system. And because we are following the double entry accounting system, which says that every transaction will have two effects. And because every transaction is going to have two effects, an account also have the two sides. So, the second part that we need to learn in here is an account is prepared in two parts, right? The left hand side of the account is called as debit side, whereas the right hand side of the account is called as credit side. Now what is this debit and credit? Basically, there was this Italian mathematician who evolved this concept of accounting and the double entry system, in fact, Mr. Pacioli. Now what has he evolved is that every transaction will have two effects. That's why we are following the double entry system. In the Latin terms, there was this word debere and a credere. Debere is to give and credere is to receive. And from those two Latin words, we have got the terms debit and credit. Which means what? Whenever I am preparing a summary. Now what is this summary? I'll talk about that in more detail now. Related to a person, activity, purpose, as I said. This is ... account. It is having two parts into it. As I said, the left hand side will be called as what? Debit side, and the right hand side will be called as credit side. What is the format of that is what we are preparing here. So our format will be date of the transaction will be written in that. The particulars related to that transaction, the amount of that transaction. Again, on the right hand side, we are going to write the same thing: date, particulars, and amount. On the left hand side, we call this side as debit side, and the right hand side is called as what? Credit side. All the things that we have recorded on the debit is called as debit record. That's why we identify this as DR, debit record. Whereas something which is written on the credit, we call that as credit record. That's why we write the initials as CR, that is credit records. I said account is a summary of different transactions related to a person, activity, purpose. Observe it. किसी व्यक्ति को हम लोग सैलरी पे कर रहे हैं, वो बंदा हमारे साथ में साल भर काम करता है, हम उसे हर महीने सैलरी देने वाले हैं नहीं, तो हर महीने जो हम सैलरी देंगे उसका रिकॉर्ड एक जगह होना चाहिए या नहीं, इसलिए हम लोग सैलरी अकाउंट बनाते हैं, जिसमें अगर अप्रैल की सैलरी दे रहे हैं तो अप्रैल में रिकॉर्ड होगी, मई में सैलरी दे रहे हैं तो मई में रिकॉर्ड होगी, जून में सैलरी दे रहे हैं तो जून में, एंड लाइक दिस इट विल कंटिन्यू टिल नेक्स्ट मार्च. So I'll have a single place, that is salaries account, which will tell me whatever are the salaries paid during the particular period. So it automatically becomes a summary of all transactions related to salary or not. मान लो there is this person who is doing the business. वो किसी से गुड्स क्रेडिट पे खरीदता है. Let's say there is this person, let's call him Jumru, right? And there is another person, let's call her Jumri, right? Jumru purchases goods on credit from Jumri. तो अगर झुमरू अपने बुक्स में झुमरी का अकाउंट बनाना चाहता है तो झुमरी से साल भर में कितने बार परचेसेस हुए, उसको कितने बार पैसा दिया, उससे कितने बार गुड्स रिटर्न हुए, हो सकता है कुछ डिस्काउंट्स मिल रहे हो, कुछ बेनिफिट्स मिल रहे हो, इन सब ट्रांजैक्शंस को झुमरी से रिलेटेड एक ही जगह पे लाना जरूरी है नहीं, क्योंकि अल्टीमेटली मुझे ये पता करना जरूरी है कि झुमरी को कितना पैसा देना बाकी है. So for that purpose, Jhumru will do what? Or me as an accountant of Jhumru will do what? Will prepare Jhumri's account. And that Jhumri's account will show me what? The net amount payable. Kaise? Because I am preparing the summary of all transactions related to Jhumri at a single place or not. So that's what we call as an account. That's what happens in an account. I hope this term of account is also clear for you. Because there are so many places where we are going to use the term account. So it becomes very much necessary to learn this basic term. So what is accounting? Accounting is basically a systematic process of keeping the record, classifying that record, summarizing it, and analyzing that all records as our requirements. क्यों अल्टीमेटली हम बिजनेस कर किस लिए रहे? To make the profits, to earn money out of that. तो हम अकाउंटिंग के द्वारा ये पता करने की कोशिश करते हैं कि हम लोग प्रॉफिट कमा रहे हैं या नहीं. हम लोग अकाउंटिंग करके ये पता करने की कोशिश करते हैं कि हमने कुछ असेट्स, कुछ चीजें बनाई हैं या नहीं. एंड देयरफॉर we need to follow this systematic process of accounting. Am I clear? Very good. Now, let's come to the further term. There are certain products that we deal into. There are certain items that we deal into. An item that we purchase or sale can be categorized into three parts. What are these three parts? Let's observe it. An item can be categorized as goods. An item can be categorized as an asset. Now, what is this? We are going to talk about that in more details also. For now, I'm just trying to focus on the basic terms, as I said already. And an item can be treated as consumable. The product, the item that we are dealing into, a business deals in such item. Means what? You keep on purchasing it, you keep on selling it. You purchase for the production purpose, for using in the final product. You are a manufacturer. So you purchase, you process it, and then you make some new finished product out of that. Take a very simple example. There is this mobile manufacturing company which purchases the chipsets, the plastic, the steel, etc. and they mold these all things into a single product called as mobile. So what they are basically doing is, they are purchasing the ingredients, processing it and producing something new, separately identifiable in the market or not. So for them, the plastic, the steel, the chipsets, the electronic devices that they are purchasing are basically for using in the finished products or not. So such all products will be called as goods. Take another example. The person who is a mobile dealer, he is not manufacturing, he is only trading. He is purchasing, keeping, selling it. For him, the mobiles purchased and the mobiles being sold will become the goods, because he is basically dealing into such product or not. That's what I've written. When a business deals in the item, then in that case such item becomes the goods. Whereas something that has been purchased for long-term use into the business and is not for the purpose of resale is called as an asset. Purchased for long-term use in the business, not meant for immediate resale, is what you call as an asset. Like take for example, I purchased the mobile. I am using that mobile for the purpose of recording my lectures. I am purchasing the asset for long-term use in my business or not. I have not purchased the mobile for the purpose of immediate resale. Does that mean I'm not going to sell that at all? Answer is no. But it is not for immediate resale. And that's where it becomes an asset. So for purchase and sale, if I purchased it for the purpose of resale, goods. If I purchased for use and after a certain period of use I'm going to sell it, then in that case it will be called as an asset. मैं बेचूंगा नहीं बेचूंगा ये बात अलग है, पर बेचने के लिए नहीं खरीदा ये बात पक्की हो गई. So in that case it will become my asset. Assets can further be divided into fixed, current, etc. We'll talk about that in detail separately. And the third thing that we are calling about is consumable. हम लोग आइटम्स की बात कर रहे हैं, हम लोग प्रोडक्ट की बात कर रहे हैं, हम लोग जो पर्टिकुलर चीजें खरीद रहे हैं उसके बारे में बात कर रहे हैं. A consumable is item purchased for short term use within the business. What do I mean by short term use within the business? मैंने स्टेशनरी खरीदी, मैंने पेपर खरीदा. अब ये जो पेपर खरीदा था मैंने नोट्स प्रिंट करने के लिए खरीदे. मैंने ये नोट्स बना लिए और ये नोट्स मैं बांट दूंगा. तो जो मैंने स्टेशनरी खरीदी थी, जो पेपर खरीदा था, दैट वाज फॉर शॉर्ट टर्म यूज, फॉर कंजम्पशन इन माय बिजनेस इटसेल्फ. मैं कैलकुलेटर खरीद के आया, मैं पेन्स खरीद के आया. लार्ज मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कंसर्न्स के केस में वो लुब्रिकेंट्स, ऑयल खरीदते हैं फॉर मेंटेनेंस ऑफ देयर मशीन्स. These all for them will be called as what? Consumables. These are neither used for production purpose. Those are not meant for resale, but those are meant for use within the business in a short period of time, generally less than 1 year. Therefore, those are called as consumables. Am I right? I hope you are learning the things right. This is the way we have to go ahead. One by one, we have to learn the terminologies. One by one, we have to go ahead. And once these terms are good for us, then we can start talking about the accounting aspects. इसके बाद अगर हम लोग अकाउंटिंग की बात करेंगे तो वो ज्यादा इजी हो जाएगा. अदरवाइज क्या होगा, मैं अगर कोई नया टर्म आपके सामने ले आऊंगा, पहले आपका डाउट कि अब ये टर्म क्या है. So that's why I'm clarifying on those terms first. Right? Let's come ahead now with the next set of terminologies. ये बहुत ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट टर्म्स हैं, बहुत ज्यादा उपयोग में आने वाली हैं. We'll be using it recurringly. There is something called as income. There is something called as expense. Of course, I'm not talking about the X who is paying you a lot. Forget about that. कोरोना चल रहा है, अभी हर कोई X हो तो ज्यादा अच्छा है. Well, let it be. We're going to talk about something called as assets and liabilities. 4 very important terminologies. First, the brief definitions about these 4 terms, and later on we'll go to the elaboration of that. Income actually in some cases is called as profit also, but that's a wrong definition is what I can understand. Income is basically the revenue generated by a business against the supply of goods and services. Reliance Industries Limited डीजल, पॉलीमर ऐसे तरह के प्रोडक्ट बेचते हैं. तो डीजल बेच के, पॉलीमर्स बेच के, नेचुरल गैसेस बेच के इनको जो पैसा मिला या मिलने वाला है, दैट बिकम्स देयर इनकम, रेवेन्यू against the supply of goods. Similarly, if you take my example, Ekatvam Academy's example, we are not giving you any goods. सर आप नोट्स देने वाले, नोट्स आर नॉट गुड्स, नोट्स आर पार्ट एंड पार्सल ऑफ आर सर्विस. वी आर imparting education, and against this impartment of education to you, you have or your parents have paid the fees to us. So that fees that you have paid to us becomes our income. If you take the example from the perspective of an individual who is working somewhere, who is employed somewhere, that person is providing himself his own services to the business, and against that business is paying them in the form of salaries or not, so that salary becomes the income of that individual. That's why I said income is basically the amount that you are generating, the revenue that you are generating against the supply of goods और सर्विसेस. आप बैंक में कैश डिपॉजिट करते हो तो बैंक के लिए वो डिपॉजिट किया हुआ कैश इनकम नहीं बन जाता. वो आपका पैसा बैंक प्रिजर्व कर रही है. आजकल तो प्रिजर्व कर रही है नहीं, पता नहीं, यस बैंक की कहानी सभी को पता है. बट बैंक ने जब किसी व्यक्ति को लोन दिया, उसके अगेंस्ट बैंक इंटरेस्ट ले रही है. व्हाई? Because bank is providing the service of providing loans to the people, and against that they are charging the interest. In fact, this is one more aspect. Revenue generated by a person or business against utilization of one's assets or resources. बहुत ही भारी भरकम शब्द आ गए. One's assets और resources. सिंपल है. मैं कहीं जाके रेंट पे रह रहा हूं, तो जो मेरा लैंडलॉर्ड है उसकी प्रॉपर्टी मैं यूटिलाइज कर रहा हूं या नहीं? प्रॉपर्टी इज एन एसेट. उस प्रॉपर्टी के यूज के लिए दिया हुआ पैसा इज रेंट. सो रेंट फॉर माई लैंडलॉर्ड बिकम्स व्हाट? इनकम. करेक्ट. सिमिलरली जो मैं बैंक का एग्जांपल दे रहा था, बैंक जब किसी बोरोवर को लोन देती है तो वो बोरोवर बैंक के रिसोर्सेज यूज कर रहा है या नहीं? बैंक का पैसा यूज कर रहा है या नहीं? और उसके अगेंस्ट ब्याज दे रहा है. सो फॉर बैंक इंटरेस्ट बिकम्स द इनकम. करेक्ट. बैंक ने आपको एटीएम की फैसिलिटी दी, आपको कार्ड फी चार्ज लगा दिया, बिकॉज बैंक इज प्रोवाइडिंग यू द सर्विस. So, three things: revenue against supply of goods, revenue against supply of services, or revenue against the utilization of assets or resources is called as income. On the same lines, we can learn the term expense. Basically, expense says an amount spent to generate the revenue of a business is what you call as expense. बहुत ही simple, straight kind of definition. गुड्स सेल करने के लिए, मतलब इनकम जनरेट करने के लिए, मुझे पहले गुड्स परचेज करने पड़ेंगे या नहीं? सो परचेज बिकम्स माय एक्सपेंस. मैंने मेरे एम्प्लॉइज को लगा दिया सेल्स के लिए, मार्केटिंग के लिए, उनको मुझे सैलरीज देनी पड़ेगी. I am paying the salaries to them for generating my income or not. So salaries become my expense. मैं एक प्रॉपर्टी में काम कर रहा हूं, उस प्रॉपर्टी का रेंट पे कर रहा हूं. रेंट किस लिए दे रहा हूं? बिजनेस के लिए. बिजनेस किस लिए चल रहा है? इनकम जनरेट करने के लिए. सो रेंट बिकम्स माय एक्सपेंस. सिमिलरली electricity charges, traveling, telephone, postage, dispatch expenses, these all are my expense. I am incurring. I am ready to pay. I am ready to spend these all amounts. For what? For generating my revenue, my income. Like आप में से कई लोग एकत्वम एकेडमी आके गए हैं. You must be finding that there are the staff into the office, there is electricity, there is internet, there is connection, video lectures दे रहे हैं, उसके लिए apps खरीद के रखी हुई हैं. These all amounts we are spending for what? For generating our own income or revenue. And that's why this becomes what? Expense. In fact, expense can further be divided into direct expenses, indirect expenses, operating expenses, non-operating expenses, fixed expenses or long-term expense, short-term expense. What these all are, that is capital and revenue expenditure. What these all are, we'll be discussing in detail. हाल फिलहाल हम लोग सिर्फ फोकस कर रहे हैं what is an expense. Any amount spent, any amount incurred for generating the revenue of the business, for creating the revenue of the business is what we call as expense. मैंने मशीनरी खरीद ली, तो मशीन का खरीदना भी बिजनेस के लिए ही हुआ है नहीं. उसमें गुड्स प्रोड्यूस होंगे और प्रोड्यूस गुड्स सेल होंगे, सेल हो गए तो इनकम होगी. दैट मींस द अमाउंट स्पेंट ऑन मशीनरी विल आल्सो बी एन एक्सपेंस. उसे हम बाद में डिवाइड करेंगे कि वो हमारा शॉर्ट टर्म के लिए खर्चा है, लॉन्ग टर्म के लिए खर्चा है, वगैरह वगैरह. ये सारी चीजें हम लोग बात करेंगे आराम से. चिंता मत करिए, आपके एग्जाम के पहले आपको सब कुछ आ जाएगा. एग्जाम नहीं, अगले 10-15 दिन में सब समझ आ जाना है आपको. अकाउंटिंग क्या होती है, कैसे होती है, हाउ डू वी डू द record keeping, etc. So you need not worry about that. The next aspect, the next term that we have to talk about is asset. मैंने पहले ही डेफिनेशन कह दी. Anything acquired, purchased, constructed, created for long-term use, for long-term, not long-term, anything, in simple terms I'll say, anything owned by a business. Why I changed my definition is because we have to talk about something called as fixed asset, current asset also. That's why I'm changing this this definition. Receivables by a business. I said anything owned by a business. I purchase computer. I own that computer. That becomes my asset. Anything purchased for, let's say, resale goods, जब तक नहीं बिकते हैं तब तक मेरे ही है ना, है ना. So goods also become my asset, but for short term. Further to that, if I purchase the shares of some company, it's a kind of investment. I own those shares or not. So those shares become my asset. I have some cash into my pocket. Abhi nahi hai. So that cash becomes my asset. I have some bank balance. That bank balance becomes my asset. So anything that I own will be called as my asset. Similarly, any receivables will also be termed as asset. मतलब क्या? मैंने किसी को अगर क्रेडिट में गुड्स बेच के रखे हुए हैं तो उस व्यक्ति से मुझे पैसा लेना बनता है या नहीं? So that is a receivable. Receivables are also assets. Correct? Eh? And the last term, the final term that we'll be talking about for today, we'll be elaborating, we'll be expanding these all terms in detail in the next session. That is the liabilities. A liability is basically an obligation of a business. Amount payable by a business to its owners, lenders, or creditors is what we call as a liability. A business is liable to. A business owes to, O-W-E-S, owes to someone. That amount is what we call as a liability. मैंने गुड्स क्रेडिट पे खरीदे, सप्लायर को पैसा अभी भी देना बाकी है. So that supplier's payment, that creditor's payment will become business's liability. मैंने बैंक से लोन ले लिया. I was feeling a loan, so I took the loan. Forget about it. So when I've taken the loan from bank, I'm supposed to repay that money or not? That becomes my liability. Similarly, if some people have invested their money into my business, they own this business. Business is expected to pay that money back. जब भी close होगा तब. So the liability to the owners is also, the amount payable to owners is also a liability. Kindly revise these all concepts that we have talked about today, the basic terminologies. The expansion of that will be done in the next session. Till then, I hope you'll be through and through on these. If you have any kind of questions, queries, difficulties related to this, you can just ping me, you can just WhatsApp me on my number, or you can even send me on Telegram 94229-18901. Please send the messages on this. If you're finding any kind of difficulty, you can just ping me up. Thank you for today.